2 and negative 2. 3 and negative 3. Okay, these are integers. And the number 0 is also an integer, and it is neither positive nor negative. So it is the only number basically that doesn't have a sign positive or negative. And we'll talk about that more. So again, we're on our dashboard. On the left-hand side, you have an ebook. Click on the ebook. Okay, and again, yours is only going to show 2 green books. Mine's going to show all of them, hopefully. Someday, maybe. Oh, it went straight to it. Okay, so this is your book. So you would have clicked on the one on the left for English. Looks like I was already overlooking at 8.3. So let's go use the table of contents to navigate back to 6.2. We already did one on 6.1. Or sorry, I've got 6 on the mind. 8. So we already talked about 8.1. So now we're just going to talk about comparing and ordering them. I believe there's some on rational numbers. So let's talk about 8.2 through 8.4 here. Okay, so I'm going to start in 8.2. I really encourage you to go ahead and look through this book on your own. I don't always love the way this book explains things, but with all the number lines and the visuals that it has, it's really good. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through this. So let's see if we can keep it on one page for once. It's been a little weird on my iPad lately. Okay, so 8.2. This is kind of a preliminary thing we could have done as a class, but since we're not together, we won't. Okay, so let's just look here at what they want us to be doing. So they want us to compare, okay? Now just remember that on a number line you have 0. If you're looking at this, I wish I had my laser pointer here, I don't. If you look on your number line, we have 0. And to the right are the positive numbers, and to the left are the negative numbers. Now when we're comparing, you're thinking about what is bigger. And I think the best way to think about what is bigger, what is greater, would be in terms of temperature, okay? So what is a greater temperature? -5 degrees or -10 degrees? Okay, notice that -10 is a bigger number than 5, but as it goes more negative, the value is less. So -10 degrees is colder or is less value than 5. So the bigger the negative number, right, as it goes more left on your number line, the value is smaller. So when we're comparing, if I say what is bigger, -6 or -5, you might think to yourself, well, 6 is bigger than 5, and you might want to say 6. And that is going to be the biggest mistake that you'll make when you compare these. Or like on B here, -5 and -3. So which is bigger? Well, -5 is to the left of -3. So -5 is less than. Okay, so that is what it's showing here. -5 less than -3. Okay, and really graphing these on a number line is a great way to get to know negative numbers. So I really encourage you, like on all of these problems, negative numbers are one of the biggest struggles that my 7th grade math class and even further into math that people really struggle with. So I think the more you get to understand negative numbers by looking at them on number lines, by looking at them on a thermometer, we talk about it in a coordinate plane. We'll do that later. But the more you look at negative numbers and how they relate to positive numbers and how they relate to each other, the better. Okay, so we're just comparing. And like I said, I'm gonna kind of fly through this because I really want you to kind of look at these yourself. Okay? So example 2 is saying put these numbers in order. Okay? So basically what it's telling us to do is, first of all, draw the number line and then plot them. Notice that 0 is in the middle, and -4 is the furthest from 0 because it's more negative. So when you're ordering them, you basically plot them And then, like it says here, write the integers as they appear on the number line from left to right. Because, just like a number line that starts at 0, the numbers, the further left you go on a number line, the lesser the value. So this in order would be -4, -2, -1, 0, and then 3. Okay, let's keep going here. Of course, it's going to switch me to 2 pages. Okay, let's look at this reasoning. Okay, I want you to think about this one. Try not to read ahead. A number is greater than -8. Okay, so it's bigger than -8. So think about the left side of the number line. Okay, try not to look below. Just think. Try to picture this number line, and then -8 is all the way to the left. So it is greater than that. So it's between -8 and it's moving to the right because it's greater than that. And it is less than 0. So I want you to start your number line in your mind at 0, and it goes to -8. And we're talking about a number between -8 and 0, and it wants to know what's the greatest possible integer value that could go in there. Okay, so here's my question. Can 1 be in that group? No, because 0 to the left of 0 is all negative numbers, so there are no positive numbers. So we can rule out D here because D says 2, okay? Now -10. -10, let's look at A. -10 is past -8 if you're imagining this number line. If you're having trouble imagining it, there's a picture. So -10 is outside of this range. Remember, greater than -8 and less than 0. So they show us this range. So what is the greatest value? Pause the video and see if you can look at those and figure it out. The other two numbers lie in the range. Okay, I hope you thought of C, -1, rather than -7, because remember, as you go further right on the number line, the value increases. Okay, so hopefully that's kind of starting to make sense of how the value of numbers work. Okay, so let's see here. There's another one. Why don't you guys look at example 4 yourself? I'm going to move on. These are your practice problems that are assigned. This is all about just getting to understand how positive and negative values work, okay? I showed you guys on Google Classroom, I posted this one about ground level. So ground level and sea level are 0. Those are so I just gave you the answer. What integer represents ground level? The integer 0 represents ground level, okay? So if you hadn't figured this out before now, the answer to A is 0. Okay, so you'll commonly see that. So down here, oh boy. Yeah, this iPad doesn't like this app. Sorry, guys. Okay, if you look at this one with the mountains and the little chart below it, it's saying highest elevation, lowest elevation. These are relative to sea level. Okay, sea level is 0. Okay, so Florida, for instance, has its highest elevation is positive 345, so that means it has some hills, right? 345 isn't very high compared to California, which is 15,000 highest because it does have mountains, right? So Florida might have some large hills, but its lowest elevation is right at sea level, right where the sea comes in. Okay, and California actually has lower than sea level, so try to think of how that would be. How could something be below sea level? Okay, so think about that. Read these. I really, really want you guys to kind of be doing some thinking on your own on this. I'm not trying to rush through this. I really want you to try your best to understand negative numbers. Talk to your parents about them. What happens in a bank account if I have $100? Let's say you have $100 that you've saved up and you spend $50 on some, I don't know, what can you guys buy for $50? On some half-price shoes. So how much do you have left? Well, you have your bank account had a positive $100, and then you took away 50, which was a negative 50. Okay, I know you're thinking subtract, but starting next year, we don't really think about it as subtract as much as we think about it as adding a negative, but I'm getting off topic here. So, okay, so just be thinking about what are positive and negative numbers. And I want to do an example here for 8.4. Okay, rational numbers. So rational numbers are all of the numbers that are all of the integers. So it's integers and fractions and decimals. Okay, so a rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction where a and b are integers. So basically what it's saying is fractions and decimals. Okay, so we're going to add fractions and decimals. So I want you to look here at, if I can get a better view. Sorry, there's nothing I can do. I've played with this. Okay, so if I look at this graph here, graph each number and its opposite. Okay, so negative 3/4 and its opposite, just like in section 1, no surprise, is negative 3/4. Okay, just like positive 3 and negative 3, positive 3/4, negative 3/4. But what I want you to look at while we're looking at this graph is I want you to look at how these numbers are ordered. Okay, so look at 0. I wish I had my laser. I can't put, I would have had to copy and paste this. I'm sorry. So look at 0 on this first number line. Notice that to the right, okay, let's look at to the right. We're gonna look at 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1, right? So hopefully you know that 1/2 is bigger than 1/4. So as you go from 0 to the right, the numbers get bigger. Okay? If you start at 0 again and look the other way, you'll notice that negative 1/4 is, just like on the positive side, is the first number going left. So the values of the negative number, while the value is going to go down, the number, so the size of the number, so the distance, if you will, so 0 to 1/4 is 1/4 away from 0, right? And 0 to negative 1/4 is also 1/4 away from 0. So you'll start to notice that the opposites are the same distance from 0. That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay, so we have negative 1/4, negative 1/2, negative 3/4, and negative 1. So if you'll notice, 3/4 and negative 3/4, both of them are 3/4 away from 0. Okay, and if you want to know the distance between the two numbers, right, then you would have 2 times 3/4. You would have 2 3/4 away from each other, right? Because from positive 3/4 to 0 is 3/4, and from 0 to 3/4 is also 3/4. So 3/4 plus 3/4 would give us the total distance. Okay, and I talk about distance. They actually do right here in B. They talk about they start talking to you about distance. Oh, and an A. Sorry. So distance is important when you're thinking about negative numbers. Okay. Again, please take the time just to look at this stuff. You'll be glad you did next year. Be thinking about negative numbers more and more because it's helpful. Okay, so you're just going to compare them, okay? And again, I want you to look through this, so I'm going to go quickly. Just look at them on the graph. The further to the left, the lower the value. Even though as you go further left, negative 100 is further left than negative 1, right? So negative 100 is less than negative 1. So that's a little bit odd compared to what you're used to. Okay, and then decimals are the same thing. Okay, actually decimals are a little easier because they make it it's a little clearer as to which is a bigger number. Remember, if you divide the top number divided by the bottom number of a fraction, you get a decimal. So if that helps you to order them, to put them on a number line, you can always do that. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving on. And I'm going to have you guys think about the modeling real lives yourselves. And I want to go into absolute value really quick. So this is a long lesson. You can pause this if you want. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly though as well, because I want you to take time.